Hello and welcome to the News at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland. Tonight, dozens of people are evacuated from their homes in Aberdeen as firefighters deal with a blaze visible across the city. Also tonight,
he's got on with his life and Michelle's dead in a grave.
a father's anguish over the sudden release of his teenage daughter's killer. We'll hear how the first week of the UK's first drug consumption room in Glasgow has gone. And we'll tell you all about a new video game that's inspired by the myths of the Scottish borders and made out of clay. We'll also have all the sport with Lewis. What have you got for us tonight?
Well, what a huge week of European football, Laura. Celtic could secure a Champions League playoff spot tonight. And tomorrow, Rangers face a Manchester United side short on confidence at Old Trafford.
Hello, I'm Laura McKeever. Welcome to the News at 7. Nearly 40 homes in Aberdeen were evacuated today after a huge fire near the city's Pittodrie Stadium. The blaze broke out at a garage this morning, as Louise Hosey reports.
The fire broke out at the car garage here on Merkland Road East at around 8 o'clock this morning. At its height, 7 fire appliances and a high-reach vehicle were used. Police and fire crews have cordoned off several streets all the way down to Pittodrie Stadium. Earlier, a plume of black smoke could be seen across the city's skyline as firefighters battled to bring the fire under control. We understand that more than 60 residents from around 39 properties were evacuated from their homes. A rest centre has been set up at nearby Aberdeen Sports Village. Earlier on, we spoke to a woman who lives in a flat across the road from where the fire broke out.
Within seconds it just went up, and I mean literally it just turned into like the first explosion happened. And it just got, they tried to tackle it, but I think they had to pull in the cherry picker. And by the time that got here, that other building was gone. The building was literally, it was burnt near enough to the ground. But then it started catching on to the shops next door.
The fire service says there are no reports of any casualties. They say that gas and electricity supplies may be shut off for prolonged periods and that doors and windows should be kept shut. The service says that at this stage it's too early for any investigations into the cause of the fire to begin. Louise Hosey, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Now, Michelle Stewart was just 17 when her ex-boyfriend stabbed her to death in the Ayrshire village of Drongan in 2008. For years, her family have campaigned for tougher measures to be put on perpetrators when they're released from prison. And they say victims and their families need more of a voice about the impact the crime has had on them. John Wilson, who is now 36, was released last week. Katrina Renton spoke to Michelle's family.
She was a person for winding people up. The boys were able on the computers and that. She would change their passwords without telling them and just sit and watch them laugh. And she was right into music. She used to go to the out with discos with me and she wanted to play music. She loved her music. And she was just your typical teenage girl. Of course, you'd never expect a thing in a mining village to happen like that. Somebody comes in a bus, premeditated with a knife, jumped out from behind the shops and stabbed her 10 times.
You lost your sister. How's life been without that?
We were very close, and it was just hard knowing that you're never going to get to see her again and see her grow up and enjoy life and do what the rest of us done growing up.
John Wilson was released last week.
So he's back out in the streets, in the public, and that's when it sort of hits you, realising now he's getting on with his life and Michelle's dead in a grave. And it's reality that hits you then.
You've been campaigning for Michelle's Law. Do you feel that you've had better communication because of what you've done with the parole board?
And one of the biggest things we were fighting for are exclusion zones. We don't want to be seeing him in the supermarket, in Ayr, or wherever we are on our daily jobs. So that was one of the main things we wanted, was to him make sure he can't come back into Ayrshire.
So you've achieved that for Michelle?
That is achieved, yeah. He has got licence conditions that he can't come back into Ayrshire.
Kenny, you know, you were there, you gave Michelle CPR. You watched your sister. pass away. How the impact on you for that must be enormous.
The impact on that for that night is something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. It's difficult to put that into words. You know, how do you comprehend? It's something that you don't ever expect to have to do.
You've made some inroads, as your dad was saying. There's more to be done.
I think it's important that these people making these decisions take into account the impact this has had on families. You know, it's easy to just sit and focus on him, and everything seems to gear towards them, giving them a better life, making sure that they get out and they build a new life. For us, you're forgotten about. I don't even think you're an afterthought if you're a thought at all.
In a nutshell, what would you like to see happen as a result of Michelle's death, as a result of the developments from Michelle's Law? What needs to happen next?
I think giving victims and their families a bigger say, let them have a voice, let them speak up, take into account the impact that these crimes are having on victims and their families. Take that into account when you're making these decisions.
So that's not just the parole board, that's kind of...
I think as a whole, and I think tougher sentencing, have a deterrent. At the moment, there isn't much a deterrent.
We've always kept our name in the limelight, those that are forgotten, and hopefully we can prevent it happening to somebody else.
Well, the Parole Board for Scotland said it doesn't comment on individual cases but considers each case on its own merits. It adds that if an offender is released on parole, they're subject to be recalled to prison at any time if they breach the terms of their licence. Right, let's get a roundup now of stories making the BBC News app in Scotland. And police say a man and girl found dead at a house in West Lothian were father and daughter. The bodies of 36-year-old Mark Gordon and 6-year-old Hope were found on Monday. A weather warning for high winds has been upgraded from yellow to amber across large parts of Scotland on Friday. Gusts of up to 90 miles per hour are expected during Storm Éowyn. And there are concerns over long journeys for patients flying from Barra to Stornoway for hospital treatment. Expectant mothers and people with cancer face trips of 5 hours or more. So for more information, remember, on all of these stories, you can scan the QR code there on the screen now. Next, you will remember the story of the 4 loose lynx captured in the Highlands earlier this month. Conservationists have described the person who released them as reckless and irresponsible. But there are a growing number of so-called guerrilla rewilders who believe rare and even extinct species should be reintroduced to the country, regardless of what the rules say. The BBC's climate editor, Justin Rowlett, has been speaking to Derek Gout from Dundee, who runs a 300-acre farm in Devon.
Derek Gow is a renegade. Some would call him a criminal. He breeds British indigenous animals with a view to releasing them into the wild. What he is doing is potentially illegal because some of the animals he breeds became extinct here hundreds of years ago, and there are laws against their release. Animals like these magnificent creatures, lynx.
Derek, when was the last time these would have been seen in the wild in the UK?
Late Middle Ages, so you're looking at probably somewhere in the region of 400, 500 years ago.
Bringing animals like this into the wild is very controversial. A few weeks ago, 4 lynx were released in the Scottish Highlands. They were caught. One of the cats later died. Police Scotland is investigating the incident.
You've got lynx. Did you release lynx into Scotland?
I did not release lynx in Scotland.
Would you consider doing that?
Would I consider doing it? I think it'd be really difficult, and our cats would not be good candidate cats because they're so tame. The creatures that should be here aren't here because of what we did in the past, and now that we just don't need as many sheep or all the food in theory that where the landscape's here to produce, why can't we start to restore some of the lost creatures to it?
This is not just a hobby. Derek Gow's 400-acre farm here in Devon has become a centre for breeding rare species. He employs 15 people, and while he may not have any plans to release his lynx into the wild anytime soon, this place has become a hub for other covert species reintroductions.
It's a girl.
Some of his team are weighing water voles.
110. So you've got some growing to do, my love.
Gow says he's released some 25,000 of this once common, now endangered species over the years. He's also responsible for releasing dozens of these beavers into the wild here in the UK. And he's working with other species. The last recorded UK breeding pair of black storks was in 1416. White storks were also once indigenous to the UK, but are now extinct. He's got polecats and is now breeding insects too, including these glowworms.
This is irresponsible. You don't know the damage that could be done. You don't know the financial impacts that could be caused. Where are the impact assessments? And in the event that we end up in a position where they need to be controlled, there is no ability to control those species. So I think it really is irresponsible.
He plans to release these Scottish wildcats later this year. Now, Gow's activities may sound noble, but his approach is divisive. Some see him as a courageous visionary, others regard him as an arrogant maverick whose animal releases could do more harm than good. Justin Rowlatt, BBC News, Devon.
Now, it was many years in the planning, but when the UK's first drug consumption clinic opened its doors in Glasgow last week, nobody knew how often it would actually be used. Well, now we're getting more of an idea. The Thistle, which allows people to take illegal drugs under medical supervision, was used 131 times in its first 7 days, with no medical emergencies. Well, let's find out more now with Professor Andrew Macaulay, who is a lead for projects involving people injecting drugs at Public Health Scotland. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Laura.
Thank you so much for coming in and joining us. What was your expectation, first of all, about this clinic and how many people might use it?
Well, as you say, it's a hugely encouraging start in the first week, and experience from similar services across the world tells us that there will be a process over the first couple of months where the service has to gain the confidence and trust of the target population, and these numbers certainly suggest they're off to a healthy start.
What might make somebody reluctant to go to one of those clinics, especially in those early days when it's just opened?
Yeah, well, the target population are people engaged in illegal behaviour, so they've spent a lifetime engaged in that illegal behaviour, and now there's an opportunity to go and engage in that within a legal service. So there is a confidence issue to get over that first hurdle, that they can go there and use it confidently and safely.
So what more can you tell us then about how it's gone? Would 131 visits perhaps include some people that might go more than once during that week, for example?
Yeah, well, they've been very particular to say it's visits. So there'll be people who have used that service multiple times. That won't equate to 130 individuals, for example. And you would expect that to increase over time as the service tries to engage the critical majority of people injecting drugs in Glasgow city centre.
And we're also told there were no medical emergencies as well during that first week.
Yeah, which again is very reassuring and something we might expect given the level of staffing in the service that's there to guard against any of these potential emergencies becoming dangerous to the individuals using the service.
There's also the opportunity while people are there to access other support services. Have they taken up that opportunity, some of them?
Yeah, well, early information hasn't really come out on that wider support services yet, but as you say, the service does more than provide an injecting space, and there is connectivity in there with the wider service landscape. So you would hope in time, again, once people become more familiar with the service and confident in using it on a regular basis, they can engage in that wider service access within the building.
When you are judging the failure or success of this facility, will it just be about numbers, or will it be more important to look at the number of overdoses and the number of drug deaths, particularly in that area?
Well, the service is very much designed to address a specific problem, which is public injecting within Glasgow city centre, particularly the east side. So the service will be judged on how it addresses that, not just for the individuals engaged in that behaviour, but also for the people living and working and experiencing that in the locality surrounding it. So the service won't be judged on one single metric. There'll be lots of different metrics around all those different factors.
OK, Professor Macaulay, thank you for the update. Good to see you. Thank you. Now, have you heard this evening's story and maybe had a similar experience or some thoughts on it? We'd love to hear from you, or any story you'd like us to be covering. Our email address is news7@bbc.co.uk. That's news7@bbc.co.uk. Now, still to come, we have the weather with Christopher. And later, we're going to hear from both traitors, US star Alan Cumming and one of the Scottish stars of the Traitors UK. But first, it's Sport Time with Lewis.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, hello there. European football is back and a couple of huge nights await Scottish clubs. Celtic can almost guarantee their place in the knockout phase of the Champions League if they beat Young Boys in Glasgow. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and this is the Celtic starting 11, unchanged from the team that beat Kilmarnock at the weekend. And goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel there today signed a new contract. Plenty of attacking intent in that lineup too, that's for sure. Earlier I've been speaking to former Celtic defender Jackie McNamara to preview the big match.
Yeah, it's a big game. Obviously the way the league's set up just now, Young Boys sitting at the bottom, and everybody think it'll be a formality, but we all know from experience, there's no easy games in Europe, so they need to be professional, and I'm sure the crowd will help them tonight.
Yeah, like you say, no easy games in Europe, but it has been a pretty impressive European campaign so far from Celtic, hasn't it? How would you assess what you've seen from Brendan Rodgers' team, and maybe what has been the difference with Celtic this season?
Yeah, I think obviously the Dortmund game wasn't great in terms of the goals they lost, and since then I think they've a lot better in terms of their shape out of possession. At home, I think they've been excellent. It always helps at home with the fans as well, especially Champions League nights. And tonight will be the same. Once the steam tune comes on, the fans will be up for it, and you're hoping that will kick the players on straight away to go and get at them. Yeah.
What will the Celtic players be thinking right now, Jackie? Will they be acknowledging privately that a win tonight pretty much could be enough to get into that playoff spot?
In the dressing room, Brendan will be emphasising the importance of their performance and how to focus on the game tonight. That's all they can take care of that. Go a long way if they can get the 3 points tonight and set themselves up. I think the new format, the Champions League, is. I was a bit sceptical at the start, but actually I think that it's actually a good format. You can get a bit fortunate with the home draws and stuff like that. But yeah, so far so good for it.
Yeah, it's been fascinating, hasn't it? And when you look at some of the sides in these playoff spots right now, there's obviously some favourable potential games in there for Celtic, but equally you've got giants like Bayern Munich, AC Milan, Real Madrid, Manchester City, and of course Dortmund, who you touched on, who humiliated Celtic a bit. So there's some glamour ties in there, but some opportunity as well for Celtic if they get into that playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know once you get into that knockout stages, and that's always been the difficulty is getting out of the league setup. Remember finishing the season or the Champions League before with 9 points, 3 home wins, and it wasn't enough. So it'll be good to get into that next stage. It'll give them a lot of confidence as well for the remainder of the season.
So that's tonight, and tomorrow night, well, another blockbuster matchup. Rangers have arrived in England ahead of their Europa League clash with Manchester United. So too, I'm delighted to say, has Sheila McLaren, who's at Old Trafford. Sheila, what can you tell us ahead of this one tomorrow?
Well, Lewis, I'm looking forward to this one. What a night we could have in store tomorrow. Rangers and Manchester United, both sides who've had plenty of problems in their respective leagues this season, but they've done well in this competition and they're both eyeing automatic progression to the last 16. Rangers will be without 8 first-team players for tomorrow night's game through a mixture of injury, suspension and omission from the European squad. But the good news for them is that they have goalkeeper Jack Butland back in contention. Now, we all know there's been plenty of memorable away nights for Rangers in recent years, and they'll be hoping for another one tomorrow.
It's not about all the noise around us, it's about what we do on the pitch, with and without the ball. And that the team is doing better and better the last couple of months, that's what we need to show tomorrow to write history here. It's, I think, a very long time ago that Rangers won at English Soul. So let's go for the challenge and give everything that we have.
Well, normally this place is a pretty daunting venue for anyone to come, but Manchester United have only won 1 of their previous 5 home games, and even their manager today was admitting they're feeling the pressure here.
We have to improve in the details, and I explained that. The way we play, we are too nervous with the ball. too nervous, really anxious. And then if you have a little bit experience in this game, when you fall in this type of context, it's really hard to go up, especially when you are a massive club.
There we are, and we will hear more from Sheila tomorrow. And remember, you can keep up to speed with all of the football tonight on the BBC Sport website. There's live commentary and text updates that you can follow, and you can also check out that huge 36-team league table, because that will always be moving around with all these games. So yeah, a really big week, Laura. I'm intrigued to see how it all pans out.
Indeed, we need glasses to see that table, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Right, from Bond villain to Broadway, and now the self-proclaimed Pied Piper of Pitlochry. Alan Cumming is one of Scotland's most versatile actors. He's the new artistic director, too, of the Pitlochry Festival Theatre. The Aberfeldy-born actor and presenter of The Traitors US says he wants to use his new platform to shine a spotlight on Scotland.
I remember they said to me, what do you want us to do? And I said, I think you should give me the job. And I think you should do it then, because I'm about to go to the Emmys and it will be announced and it will piggyback all the press for the Emmys, because obviously what we want to do, one of the reasons you have me, is to bring more attention to this building and the great work that's done here.
Well, if you're a fan of the UK version of The Traitors, a spoiler warning about our next guest. Last week, Alex from North Berwick was banished from the castle after a slip-up that caused his fellow faithful to turn on him. Alex has been speaking to the News at 7's Julianne Barnes.
This is The Traitors.
Alex, how lovely to see you. Thanks so much indeed for taking the time to chat with us. You were chosen as a faithful. How do you think that suited you and your personality? Could you have coped being a traitor?
Well, I went into it and I really wanted to be a traitor because it felt like I would have been playing a bit of a role and it wouldn't have felt quite surreal. However, I'm really glad I got picked as a faithful because it was so much pressure playing as a faithful, and I imagine that would have just been two times that playing as a traitor, and I don't think I could have managed it, because I managed to make myself look guilty in there when I wasn't. So when I was guilty, goodness knows what kind of rubbish would have spilled out my mouth at any moment.
Oh, Alex, let's go there. Let's go to the kitchen blunder, maybe what we might call your undoing. Let's revisit.
I haven't entered a kitchen since. It's too difficult. I'm worried about what I'm going to say in there. But yeah, it was. People had been suspecting me all day, so I'd been kind of grilled by people all day and some of the previous days. So I'd just gotten myself into this perpetual state of anxiety. And I remember walking into the kitchen, seeing all the people that I knew had suspected me already, and it was kind of just flitting through my head. Don't say you're a traitor, don't say you're a traitor, don't say you're a traitor. And then I opened my mouth to try and provide some logic to the group and just made myself look like a traitor. So it was my own silly fault.
Now, speaking of keeping up appearances and accents, I feel as an Irish woman speaking to a Scottish man about an English-born woman who's faking a Welsh accent, it must be difficult to sustain that lie.
I couldn't understand why she had done it initially, but then as I'm watching things back, I'm thinking, oh, she slipped out her Welsh accent there. Nobody noticed. We were just too involved in playing this game.
Well, we're sorry you didn't win the programme and the money, Alex. It would have meant a lot to you, wouldn't it? You had important plans for that money had you won it.
Yeah, you know, I really wanted to win the money, and you know, for me and my wife to begin to create a family together. So, you know, I was really gutted not to win the money, but by the time that I got banished, it actually stopped being about the money. You get so immersed in this game, it feels like real life. So at that point, I was like, I don't care about the money. I just want to get up there and give everybody a wee slice of humble pie and say, haha, wasn't me.
Oh, Alex there. Right, take a look at this. This is Judaro, the lead character of a new video game from the developer Jack King Spooner. It's inspired by the myths and music of the Borders and was made using stop-motion clay and action figures. Jack told us all about making his very unique game and also gave us a preview into his next big project.
Judaro is a handcrafted stop-motion game, all made with action figures and things you might find in a kid's play box, and it's retelling folk stories from the Scottish Borders, It was very, very hard to market the game. My name's Jack King Spooner. I'm from the Scottish borders. Well, I'm from Dumfries and Galloway, a little village called Beeswing. And Judaro is really a coming together of all my different interests, where obviously the visual side is an important part of Judaro, but then the music of the Scottish borders, songs like even Robert Burns songs, and the stories all come together in Judaro. Coming from an arts background, I like making things with my hands. And when I first went to video games, I was thinking, oh, how can I make these animations? And I really didn't want to be sitting in front of making pixel art, and well, it was just easier for me to make things with my hands. I have a very simple setup here of just a little camera stand, some blue paper, and in between I put the model. I'd move it meticulously, millimeter by millimeter, and take photographs of every frame. It's incredible the reception that Judaro has got critically. The player reviews of almost entirely positive feedback, that people really, when they get their hands on the game, it really resonates with them, has been just profound. I can't believe it, really. You know, our budget was maybe £15,000 compared to games which have million dollar budgets. So with a little bit of creativity, a lot of hard work, that we've managed to do so well with this game has been wonderful. We've been hard at work on our next project, which is a game called Machina. It's we're using everything we learned from Judaro with all the stop motion techniques, and we're really building on them. It's a game about it's a very simple game about a cute little robot stuck on an island surrounded by kind of toxic slime. It's a very hopeless situation, but all the little robots are incredibly hopeful. We're making a little game which I feel is about hope.
Jack King Spooner there, introducing us to his game, Judaro. Right, it is weather time now, and Christopher is here, and the pictures today very much the calm before the storm,
yes,
Chris.
I think that's a good analogy, Laura. Thanks very much indeed. In fact, take a look at this picture from one of our weather watchers in Shetland. Beautiful flat, calm scenes there from weather watching Wendy. It was quite foggy in places. You can see that picture from Graham in Stirling, and some lovely sunshine around parts of the East Coast, but certainly the calm before the storm. Let's take a look at what's happening, because actually on the way tomorrow we've got some rain, a weather front arriving, but you can see behind me this deepening area of low pressure. That is a storm system that is arriving on Friday, moving through on Saturday, and then a blast of cold air follows, and it remains unsettled into next week. First thing tomorrow, though, it's a quiet-ish start. Generally light winds, variable cloud, bit of mist and fog, a few showers, certainly cold. For areas across the northeast, across Aberdeenshire in towards Murray in the far north, there'll be some sunshine through the morning, but it will be a cold, frosty start. Showers for the West Niles and indeed across Shetland as well. Then as we head through Thursday morning, the cloud will thicken and the rain arrives. This band of rain working its way northward through the course of the morning and pushing further north into the afternoon. Once the rain arrives with you, probably staying with you for the afternoon. Some hill snow in the mix as well, 5 or 6 Celsius, feeling chilly. Friday, we need to look to the jet stream to understand what's happening. It's really very fast at the moment, 250 miles an hour there or thereabouts, helping to spin up areas of low pressure and develop them into potent storm systems. That's exactly what is happening on Friday, Storm Airwin. It's been named by the Met Office. And first thing, through the early hours on Friday, there'll be a spell of snow, even to low levels, but really for higher ground north of the Central Belt as well, we'll see the biggest impact from that. For most, it's the wind that is causing us greatest concern, and now elevated amber warning through central and southern Scotland on Friday, because you can see that rain and snow working its way northwards, and the winds will really be gusting very high indeed. We're talking severe gale to storm force winds. That means we could well see some power cuts, some trees being fallen. We could also see damage to buildings and certainly big waves around the coast, and of course some significant transport disruption as well. So no matter what your plans are on Friday, Storm Airwin will likely impact them. So do stay tuned to the forecast. It will be a significant day of weather. That's the forecast, Laura.
Chris, thanks so much. More news at 7 tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.